because he doesn't want to see Canadians helped right now. He wants to see Canadians hurt because he's only caring about himself.
Alright, so as soon as I ended the stream, this breaking news came out. Turns out the Randy is officially stepping down from cabinet after shifting claims on Indigenous heritage. This is the guy who, he claimed money, and he claimed he was Indigenous, and he took money from the Trudeau government based on this claim. There's a lot going around with this guy right now, and it turns out, yes, Trudeau either fired him or, quote-unquote, stepping down. It was only a matter of time before the lies were no longer stable enough to hide the truth. Yesterday, in question period, Randy said over and over again that he was not involved in this scandal at all. And guess what? He's gone. Officially gone now. Let's get into the next thing here. This was pretty funny from yesterday, actually. I've never seen anything funnier during question period. Crying from laughing so hard, I'm not sure what's funnier. Hussein, or however you pronounce his name, for repeating Cocaine Randy. Barrett for the quick comeback. Bloc Quebecois laughing behind Barrett. Or Fergus being at a loss for words.
The Honourable Minister for International Development.
The Honourable Member from Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands and Rideau Lakes, at the conclusion of asking his question, as he was sitting down, called the Minister of Employment and Workforce Development Cocaine Randy. That is extremely unparliamentary.
Cocaine Randy.
And I ask you, Mr. Speaker, to ask him to withdraw that remark. Thank you very much.
I see that the member from Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands and Rideau Lakes is rising in response to this point of order.
Speaker, I'm sure that I was referring to the other Randy as Cocaine Randy.
You look there at the background, yes, the Bloc actually end up all just laughing their asses off. It's very brief, but you do see it, and then Greg just kind of stands there as everybody just laughs hysterically for the next 30 seconds. What a circus. But the theatrics were pretty good last night, or yesterday. In addition to arrests and not being allowed to block the roads, Ottawa police adding the icing on the cake by issuing by-law tickets to Hamas loyalists. Hope this gives Canadians a sign of things to come. Okay, well, there's just a lot of beeping and horns, but yeah, you get the point from that video right there. If you have not seen the videos of the protesters getting annihilated and ripped off the road for blocking a ton of cars, literally traffic for blocks, that was a pretty great video as well. I covered that a few days ago. Breaking! An insurrection happening right now in the Senate building by pro-Palestine protesters. I guess everything is just an insurrection nowadays. I don't know. They said January 6th was an insurrection. I guess this is considered an insurrection. Everything's an insurrection now. The only thing I did notice is that the police actually did their job and they shut things down, opposed to allowing everybody to just waltz their way into the building like they did on J6. But hey, man, interesting stuff to say the very least. I don't know, man. The government is strange, that's for sure. Some international news, some, I would say, kind of important international news. This is happening again. The EU trade deal with farmers, or there is some sort of tax that is going to be implemented on farmers. And let's just say French farmers threaten chaos over this new deal. They are protesting again, spewing manure on government buildings, dumping trash everywhere. This is a repeat of what happened. I don't know if it was last year or the year before, but I wonder if some of these videos are from a couple years ago. So that's something you might need to keep in mind here. But yes, they are protesting again. They are not happy. If you know who Jeremy Clarkson is, if you've ever watched anything to do with him, specifically Clarkson's farm, he has run a farm for multiple seasons now, and the farmers, he's pretty much exposed and brought a lot of stuff to the light of day, showing how shafted farmers get by the government over in the UK. And I would only assume the same thing happens to farmers here in Canada, especially with things like the carbon tax, for example. and just soaring prices across the board. Not very good for farmers, the people that are supposed to be feeding us at the end of the day. You do not bite the hand that feeds, ladies and gentlemen.
This is where the food comes from. And if the government ends farming, which is seemingly what it wants to do, where do we get our food from?
If they go on strike, then what?
I don't think farmers will go on strike.
No.
I think there's a lot more impactful things. I think farmers can do better than that. I've got some ideas.
Keep moving back, please.
Sorry, guys.
Jeremy, for farmers.
Keep moving,
please, guys. Sorry, of course we are. Sorry, guys, can we keep moving? How bad could this be for farmers, Jeremy?
It's the end.
In a hard right, Kenny.
If you actually stop and pay attention, it's the end.
What's next after this protest if they don't back down? I would imagine if they don't back down, I would probably say we try and do a bit more like the French do.
Yeah, so, man, the French have already taken matters into their own hands. And you just heard there at the very end,
We try and do a bit more like the French do.
we'll do a bit more like the French do. So you put 2 and 2 together there. It's not looking good for government buildings probably anytime soon in the UK.
So why are you here, Mr. Clarkson?
Well, because I'm here to support farmers.
Right. Are you angry?
It's difficult to be angry on somebody else's behalf. That's like being... Yes, no, I'm not angry on someone else's behalf.
Right. So it's not about you. It's not about your farm and the fact that you bought a farm to avoid inheritance tax.
Classic BBC there. Classic. Oh yeah. It's not the fact that I bought a farm to avoid inheritance tax. The fact.
You told the Sunday Times in 2021 that's why you bought it.
These people.
Sorry?
BBC. Okay, let's start from the beginning.
Sure.
I wanted a shoot. Okay? That's even worse to the BBC. I wanted a shoot, which comes with the benefit of not having to pay inheritance tax. Now I do. But people like me will simply put it in a trust. And so long as I live for 7 years, that's fine. And as my daughter said, you will live for 7 years. You might be in a deep freeze at the end of it, but you will live for 7 years. But it's incredibly time-consuming to have to do that. And why should all these people have to do that? Why should they?
So one of the reasons Rachel Reeves says she brought this in is to stop wealthy people using it as a way
No,
of
that was the only reason she did.
Well, no, the other reason was to raise money for public services. Well, have you seen...
Are you listening to this?
The classic mainstream media trying to gaslight him, trying to manipulate the people around and watching. And even Jeremy Clarkson is calling them out directly to their faces. She is sitting there spewing absolute garbage rhetoric.
Have you tried to get a GP appointment lately?
Yes.
Right.
I just recently had a heart attack.
Okay, so you know it's tough.
Yes.
So where should they get the money from if it's not from farmers?
From farmers.
With
You hear that, everyone?
With
BBC
assets.
thinks you should be paying for everything.
Mr. Clarkson,
Okay,
you
do
know
you
it's
know
not the
how many
BBC's
people
view.
pay inheritance tax in this country?
It's 4% of estates.
What?
4% of estates.
4% pay inheritance tax. 96% of the population of the UK does not pay inheritance tax.
Sure.
After this becomes law, 96% of farmers will.
That is massive international news right there. Yes, here's some more stuff going on with French farmers dumping more stuff into the government buildings. Oh, wow. Glorious. Absolutely glorious. Like I said, you bite the hand that feeds, it's not going to end well for you. Man, you own a lot of property over in the UK. That is not good, man. You are going to be getting screwed big time. And, like I said, man, we're not too far off from the United Kingdom, right? So that should be a wake-up call for a lot of people here.
Oral questions.
Hey, look who it is.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister doubled debt, doubled the cost of housing, doubled crime with firearms, and doubled the use of food banks. And until a few minutes ago, he had a minister with a double identity. Is the Prime Minister aware of the fact that the minister in question directed his company when he was in cabinet, and he said he was falsely Indigenous? He's aware of this, and he defended and kept this minister in cabinet. Why did the Prime Minister, why is he so determined to protect the corruption of this minister? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, the member for Edmonton Centre has left the cabinet and will focus on defending these allegations. At the same time, Mr. Speaker, when the opposition leader talks about challenges that Canadians are facing, he's not offering any solutions except for cuts. He wants to cut the dental care program. He will cut the pharmacare program for contraceptive drugs. He will cut daycare spots. He will be cutting when Canadians need investment and growth.
He's back from his vacation in Peru.
Mr. Speaker, the former Attorney General in the Liberal Party, appointed by this Prime Minister, the first Indigenous person in this role, said that this was an insult for a Liberal minister to say they're Indigenous when it wasn't the case. But let's look at the different treatment of these two people. Why did the Prime Minister let go of a true Indigenous woman for having to tell the truth while supporting a false Indigenous minister who said falsehoods? The Right Honourable Prime Minister, Mr. Speaker, for a leader who says he's concerned about people telling the truth, it's interesting to see that he is muzzling his caucus to not allow them to express their concerns with respect to investments in their community. Today we've learned, Mr. Speaker, that he doesn't allow free expression to his own members. Mr. Speaker, we're here in this place to raise our voices for our communities, but he wants his members to be speaking only his voice in their communities, and that's not how things work. The Conservatives members should say what they think really.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
This Prime Minister in 9 years doubled housing costs, doubled the debt, doubled gun crime, doubled food bank use, and up until a minute ago, he had a minister with a double identity.
Oh.
The Prime Minister knew the minister was directing his business illegally from inside cabinet. He knew the minister had claimed there was another Randy when there was no other Randy. He knew that the minister had falsely claimed to be Indigenous in order to take money away from real Indigenous people, and yet he stood by him up until yesterday. Why is it that he always stands up for corruption on his own side?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the member for Edmonton Centre has stepped down from Cabinet to focus on clearing these allegations. Mr. Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition talks about the importance of speaking up. The reality is his MPs are no longer voices for their communities. They are his voice in their communities. That's not how this place is supposed to work, Mr. Speaker. We are focused on making sure that we're investing in Canadians, supporting them with the kinds of supports for housing, supports for dental, supports for childcare that Canadians need, while all he offers is cuts and austerity.
That's right.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Muzzling caucus members. This is the guy who fired the first Indigenous Attorney General because she refused to defend his corruption. She said, and I quote, "A Prime Minister committed to true reconciliation would have removed Randy and the other Randy from cabinet long ago. Instead, we have to get to watch white people play ancestry wheel of fortune so shameful and extremely destructive."
Jeez.
Why is it that he fired a real Indigenous minister for telling the truth while trying to keep in place a fake Indigenous minister who told falsehoods?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, telling the truth would be MPs continuing to stand up to advocate for their communities. But the Leader of the Opposition has asked them not to be their communities' voices here in Ottawa, but instead be his voice in their communities. That is supposedly the party of freedom and freedom of speech, but he's muzzling his MPs. He's not letting them talk to the media. He's not letting them talk to committees. The reality is he's afraid of what they might say about him, because there is no call to be muzzling MPs this way.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, this from a Prime Minister who has 20 caucus members that have signed a letter that they're ready to fire him. Why wouldn't they? This is the guy who's doubled housing costs, doubled gun crime, doubled food bank use, doubled the national debt, kept in place a minister with a double identity. Even his own caucus members know he's not worth the cost, crime, or corruption. So if he's not afraid of anything, why doesn't he call a carbon tax election like an idiot?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition just made very clearly the point that the MPs on this side of the House are free to share their opinions publicly, even when they're ones that I disagree with. Absolutely.
Whoa. Greg's gonna lay the smack down. Greg's not playing around today, guys. Yesterday got too out of hand. Colleagues, please.
Order!
Oh, there's going to be a big mute incoming.
Colleagues. Colleagues.
Colleagues.
Colleagues.
Whoa. Oh, this is going to be a wild question period if you are tuning in right now.
Colleagues, the more time that we spend here in the chair interrupting the process so that we get order in the House, the fewer questions we will be able to have and fewer answers we'll be able to have in question period. So please control yourselves today. The Right Honourable Prime Minister from the top.
Mr. Speaker, in the minds of Conservatives, we just saw a big gotcha moment where I admitted that Liberal MPs are free to speak their minds and voice their opinions even when we have disagreements. That was astonishing to the members of the Conservative Party because they're not allowed to do that. They are not allowed to speak to the media. They are not allowed to speak their minds. They are not allowed to be voices for their communities. They are not allowed to stand up for investments in their cities on housing. That is the real scandal in this place, Mr. Speaker.
Order!
Whoa! Greg, why don't you kick out some Liberal MPs? Or is it just the Conservatives? Holy crap, guys. What a wild question period. It has literally just begun. It has literally just begun.
I am...
I didn't think it could get any more entertaining than what happened yesterday, but I stand corrected.
The Honourable Member for Belleville-Chambly. Mr. Speaker, every day this House shows Quebec why we really need to get out of here.
Then go.
In the meantime, we have to repeat that the four parties in this House supported Bill C-282 on supply management, one of the rare consensus we still have here. 2 senators are blocking it. For the Prime Minister, is the Senate worth more than the vote of all elected officials from Quebec? The right on
Yeah, like, stop threatening us with a good time. Just leave.
in this House, like the Bloc leader has underscored, we all have supported unanimously protecting supply management, almost unanimously. On this side of the House, we are in favor of it. But the reality is that the Senate is doing its work. It is looking at this bill, and we will not accept any bills that minimize or take away the obligation of this chamber to protect supply management in any future trade deals. We are clear on this. Regardless of the work of the Senate, the desire of the chamber is clear.
Then I have
the honourable member from Belleuil-Chambly. Mr. Speaker, democracy has spoken, and yes, there are some 50 Conservative members that voted against supply management. Nevertheless, to try to solve this imbroglio, I will remind everyone else this. I will go to the Senate to meet with senators in person. Can the Prime Minister also meet with these senators himself? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, I often meet with senators and I'll continue to do so. But on this particular issue, I want to be absolutely clear. We will always protect supply management, regardless of the opinion of senators. We will defend, that was ironic, but we will defend the integrity of our supply management system, even when we negotiate new trade deals.
the honourable member from Burnaby South.
You know, families are telling me, they're telling me that their cell phone bills and their internet bills are so high that they have to cut back on monthly costs, like their swimming lessons for their kids. The Liberals are hurting Canadians by taxing essentials. And King Cut and the Conservatives are going to make things even worse. They want to cut the benefit for children, the child benefits, that can lose families $600 a month. Now, will the Liberals stop taxing essentials like cell phone and internet bills right now?
Hear, hear. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
If the NDP wants to join us in making life more affordable for Canadians, all they have to do is put an end to the obstruction of the work of Parliament that the Conservatives are leading on. Parliament is supposed to do the work of Canadians in making their lives better, but with the Conservative Party's obstruction, there are bills being slowed down, there are measures around dental care, around Indigenous services, school foods. These are things that we need to unblock in this House, and if the NDP will help us stop the obstructionism by the Conservatives, we can deliver for Canadians.
The honourable member for Burnaby South.
By stopping to tax the essentials.
Every time Bell or Rogers raise the price of your cell phone, the amount of GST people pay goes up too. The GST should never have been applied to essentials, but the Liberals are letting you down. It's time to fix this. Will the Prime Minister give people a hand by eliminating the GST on all essential products? Yes or no? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, if the NDP wants to join us in making life more affordable for Canadians, they just have to help us and the obstruction of this Parliament by the Conservatives. We want to work for Canadians to keep living costs down, but the Conservative Party's obstruction and the NDP's inaction on this issue has made essential bills held up. Dental care, school food, housing, Indigenous services are all held up. So many other things. So they need to work with us so we can prevent the Conservatives from blocking aid for Canadians.
I love how they act like they haven't been working together for years now, the Liberal and NDP.
This must be addressed through the Speaker, but I know that he wasn't really speaking to the Speaker himself. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
He's now admitted that the immigration system is broken after 9 years of his government. He blames bad actors. So let's put our detective hat on and find out who those bad actors were. Who was the head of the federal government that increased permits for temporary foreign workers by 154%? Who was the head of the federal government that issued 211% more permits for international students and a population growth plan that boosted growth by 300%? Wow. Can we identify who was that bad actor?
It was the other Randy.